to this. I mean, we've talked about this many a times, my friends. Connecticut, we pay the second highest overall tax rate in the nation, right? Second, by the way, second to New Jersey. They pay the number one. There's a new bill that could have us digging deeper into our pockets to fill up at the pumps to heat our homes and pay our electric bills. This comes at a time when so many residents are already struggling to pay these skyrocketing electric bills. And there was a press conference that was held from which our first guest this morning into the Daily Connerton Memorial Company interview chair was one of the speakers. He is the president of SEMA, not SEMA 4. I'm not trying to be funny. There are so many people who thought, does he have something to do with Governor Lamont's wife's kind of a nonprofit, which we know many people profited from. But, you can call yourself a nonprofit, but your salary, as long as you put your salary down to cover your profits, you're a nonprofit. So, there's a whole don't get me going on nonprofits. Yes, he is. SEMA, by the way, is the Connecticut Energy and Merchants Association, which falls right into the topic that we're talking about this morning. You know him. Let's welcome back our good friend, Chris Herb. Chris, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to hear from you. How are you today?
Yeah, thanks for having us on. It's this is the time of the year when the legislature starts to get serious, and they're serious about taking more money out of our pocket on this bill.
No, I know it's true. This is let me see. This is the long legislative session. Bills right now are being JF'd, and really you'll start to see the legislature gradually head into session. And I mean, when I say gradually, it could start off with, 2 days a week, and then the following week it's 3 days, and the following week it's 4 days, and then eventually 5, and actually the very last week, 6 days a week. So you're absolutely right. But what I want to talk about is your speaking engagement, really. Well, not really much of an engagement. You were at a press conference, really. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we, just like the legislature starting to ramp up and start to do more work, we wanted to raise awareness to your listeners and the public through this press conference and this interview today about this bill in particular, Senate Bill 1145, which is designed to tax fuels like gasoline, heating oil, propane, natural gas, electricity. If you can consume it, they want to tax it, and all in the interest of lowering emissions. Connecticut's emissions obviously are driving, the claim that the climate change is raising the temperature of the earth and increasing sea level rise. We're responsible for all of it. So now the proposed solution is tax it, and it'll stop, and we're going to cure all these problems. You know how ridiculous that is, right?
Of course.
Gary?
Oh, yeah. Every morning we talk. Absolutely. It's insane.
So we wanted to raise awareness to try to get the public involved. Just like 2 years ago, you were a champion on TCI. This is a TCI-like proposal, except it goes further. TCI was just about gasoline. Senate Bill 1145, this goes after every fuel. It increased home heating. It increased transportation costs for truckers. That's why the Motor Transport Association joined us in this fight. The New England Convenience Store Association joined SEMA in this fight because of their customers at the pump. So we're really trying to ring the alarm that this is the time before the bill starts to get out of control. It's already out of committee. It's on the Senate calendar. So this is the time to call your state senator and say, I can't afford any more to drive my kids to school or drive myself to work, and I can't afford much more to heat my home.
All right, so earlier this week, I was talking about a fourth gasoline tax, and this is what Senate Bill 1145 would actually enact. And there was some confusion with listeners. They were like, oh, wait a minute, so this is going to take the place of the existing ones. They were, the gas, the excise tax, which is 25 cents per gallon, which actually we had that tax. Well, you remember we had that holiday last year, and it expired January 1st of this year, but it's being reintroduced and re-implemented at 5 cents more per gallon for the next 5 months. Actually, I think come May 1st, which is about a week and a half from now, will have made up that 25-cent deficit. There's also the the gross receipts tax, which is based on an average. There's also a federal tax. So I have to be clear with people. This is not in lieu of those taxes. This is in addition to those taxes. This is actually a fourth gasoline tax. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, you are the authority on this. This one in and of itself is 72 cents per gallon. Am I wrong, or did I read something wrong? Or please correct me if I am. I hope I am, actually.
Well, so you are correct that this would be the fourth tax. There's no question about that. You've outlined the ones that are already in existence, and those all combined, like you said, about 10 days from now, the last 5 cents of the suspended state excise tax will be in effect, and will be at a full 25 cents. When you combine all of those other taxes, you're probably somewhere in the mid 70 cent, 75, 77 cent range when you combine all three of those taxes. This tax, and what's very disturbing about it, is that this tax isn't one that the legislature would adopt per se. They wouldn't vote on a 72 cent per gallon gasoline tax. They would cede the authority to the commissioner of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to join programs that tax fuels. And the one that we've been pointing to, which is the most robust in the country, is California's cap and trade program. And that's where that tax comes from. And that right now, California has put that as a maximum of 72 cents. So you can pay as much as 72 cents. So you're potentially doubling the amount of gasoline taxes. We're talking in the range of about $1.40, $1.50 a gallon now in taxes, potential taxes that you could pay at the pump if Connecticut were to enter into the California cap and trade program. That this bill does. That's why this bill is dangerous.
All right, so if I'm living in, I don't know, Windsor Locks or Granby or Suffield or Enfield, of course, but that's a no-brainer. Wouldn't it just make more sense for me to just drive a few miles up the road and get my gas in Massachusetts or Rhode Island or New York if you're living in, one of the bordering towns? You don't even have to be living on a town that abuts the state border. You could just be living a couple of towns away, and it's still worth your while to get gas out of state, right?
Yeah, if we adopt this, the motorists will flee to other states. Yeah. When Connecticut suspended the excise tax, our members along the state borders reported increased sales not only at the pump but in the stores. People were buying their milk and their eggs in our convenience stores. So people clearly make decisions based on what's on that pump sign, and they will drive those few extra miles or even further to go across state lines. So not only would we lose gasoline sales and the revenue that comes from that to the state, which is significant, but you'd also lose the sales inside those convenience stores and hurt those small family-owned businesses. When you pull up to a gas station, Gary, you're not doing business with ExxonMobil or Shell or Valero. You're actually, in Connecticut, you're doing business with a family because the law prohibits refiners from owning them. So this just hurts family businesses, tax revenue in general, by increasing it.
This is disgusting. Who is in their right mind thinks this bill is good? Why does this bill exist? Who introduced it, and for what purpose?
Sure. So this is a committee, a department bill. So there's no particular legislator's name on it. So the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection sent the bill language over to the Environment Committee, and they raised it. It was voted on a few weeks ago, where it came out along party lines. I will tell you, there are some Democrats that we've been lobbying that are concerned not as much about the tax piece of the bill, but they are concerned about ceding the authority and the power to the commissioner to enter into these programs with other states and, Gary, the Canadian provinces. The commissioner, if the bill passes, could strike a deal with Quebec. And then Connecticut now is tied to the Canadian provinces on their tax policy when it comes to fuel.
That's Katie Dykes, right?
That is correct, yes. She is the current one, but this would tie all future, not only the current commissioner, but all future commissioners. So, it's dangerous when a non-elected, appointed bureaucrat suddenly has this power. I'm not even sure it's constitutional, frankly, because I think the legislature, people who are elected by the taxpayers, I believe, are the only ones who should have the authority to tax the public.
Oh my goodness, this is disgusting. All right, so home heating oil could actually increase by 83 cents a gallon, costing the average household an extra $663 a year. So it's not just paying at the pump for your vehicle. It's not just gasoline. It's home heating oil as well, right?
Correct. So where we get that number again is from the published California cap and trade program. And since diesel and heating oil are equivalent products from a carbon intensity standpoint, the calculation is a maximum of 83 cents a gallon. So if you thought this past winter heating with oil and gas and electricity was expensive, this bill passes, it gets much more expensive very quickly. And I will also point out, I think it's ironic that we had a record-breaking year of people trying to enter into the Connecticut Energy Assistance Program. Operation Fuel had to suspend operations prematurely because of the overwhelming demand for energy assistance. And then suddenly, and legislators were really worked up about it. We need to help people. And I don't think any of us would disagree that our neighbors in need the state sometimes has to step in and make sure that they don't freeze to death. But isn't it ironic that just, winter ended just a few weeks ago, and now we're looking at 83 cents on heating oil, 48 cents on natural gas? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, you know what they're trying to do, I'm only guessing here, is if you vote on it now, if they vote on it now or to relinquish the rights to the Deep Commissioner, and that's inflicted on home heating oil, and we're going into the season in which home heating oil is not used as often as the winter months, it's out of sight, out of mind. People forget about it because they're not turning their heat on. And when they start to turn their heat on again, I don't know what, November of next year, late October, early November, they won't get their bill until the following month, and this will already be old news. Do you follow what I'm saying? It would have already been the commissioner would have already have implemented this. It'd be old.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we're concerned about, and again, trying to make sure that the public is aware that allowing the commissioner to make these types of decisions, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. It's the legislature abdicating their responsibility to this bureaucrat. And I think that all of that adds up to, I, as an elected official in the next election, conduct this by saying, oh, well, you know what? You got to send me back there to fix this because the commissioner is the one who did it. And like you said, the delay in the implementation, out of sight, out of mind. It's not
right.
Me. It was Deep, not the legislature.
That's right.
And that is unacceptable.
Yeah, and it's because when it comes for election time next year, they get a pass. Stay right there, Chris. We got to take a very short break. We're coming right back with Chris Herb. Stay with us.
In these new and challenging times, holding on to your money for yourselves and to help your family is so important. I'm Barry Horowitz, and I'd like to help. I know about living trusts and proper estate planning. My firm has free living trust seminars so you can get your questions answered without the pressure of an office visit. These seminars show you how you can avoid the probate process and save on estate taxes. How do you know if a living trust is worthwhile? Well, opinions vary, but we believe that if you have a home, then you should have a living trust.
Barry is hosting 6 complimentary workshops beginning Tuesday, April 18th in Bloomfield at Gillette Ridge Golf Club from 10 a.m. until 12 noon, and again from 7 until 9 p.m. On Wednesday in Southbury at the Heritage Hotel, 522 Heritage Road, from 2 until 4. The following day, Thursday, April 20th, from 10 a.m. until 12 noon at Figaro's Restaurant, Elm Street in Enfield. On Saturday, he's doing double duty in Danbury at Ethan Allen Hotel from 10 a.m. until 12 noon, and again from 2 until 4. Call today at 860-548-1000 or register online at www.preserveyourestate.net.
I'm Barry Horowitz from Nierenstein Horowitz & Associates. Looking forward to seeing you and answering your questions.
You're listening to Mornings with Gary Byron, the Republican voice of reason, only on the Talk of Connecticut Radio Network.
23 minutes after 7 o'clock, our guest is the president of SEMA. That's the Connecticut Energy Merchants Association, Chris Herb. All right, we're talking about the price of gasoline going up, 72 cents a gallon. Which is, if you do the average, I guess it comes out to about $475 a year. We've covered the cost of home heating oil and diesel, which could increase by 83 cents a gallon. That would be costing the average household, if you heat by oil or diesel, it's $663 per year. But there are some people who actually heat their home by propane or natural gas. Let's cover that. Propane could increase by 47 cents per gallon, costing an additional $573 per year.
Yes. So, propane, obviously, and natural gas are diverse fuels. They're not only used for home heating, they're used for pool heating, they're used for, fireplace insets, they're used for cooking. So this would apply to that. There is no ducking this proposal. Even if you're, a lot of people who live in mobile homes or trailer parks use kerosene. Kerosene is a part of this. You cannot get away from the long arm of these taxes, all in the name of reducing emissions. And, there are numbers being thrown around by some legislators saying, well, 88% of Connecticut residents are willing to pay more for fuel to lower emissions. And they're right. That actually, our polling shows the same numbers, except our polling went a step further, and we said, how much more are you willing to pay? And people said, about a nickel. So, this is not what the people have asked for, and don't let anyone lie with numbers.
Now, all right, let's cover natural gas. Natural gas could increase, now if you heat your home by natural gas like I do, natural gas would increase 48 cents per, what is CCF?
That's the 48 cents actually is a conversion to gallon. So it would be a 48 cents per gallon equivalency to the,
So on an average, if we were to look at that per year, like I understand, most people are not running their heat from, let's say May through September. That would come up, it still come out to over $514 per year. Like we already don't have a lot dump trucked on us already. It just seems like annually we're talking about increases on the same thing. Chris, I love having you on, and so do our listeners, by the way. But I got to tell you, it's almost like Groundhog Day, the movie, because we're like every year we're talking about another increase. It's like, and we all understand that prices go up, they don't go down, but usually it's every few years. All right, so we haven't had a rate hike in 3 years, and it's like, well, okay, if it's been 3 years, 4 years, whatever. This is annually. You're talking about this on an annual basis with us.
Forever.
We're crying uncle over here.
It's not the beginning, and they recalculate these taxes on an annual basis, so it could go up from here. These numbers are just the ones that are set for 2023. There could be a whole new higher set of numbers on per fuel for next year. The disturbing thing about natural gas, Gary, and by the way, I'm sorry you have to have me on because I never come with any good news. So, well, we did talk about jobs in the trade, in the HVAC trade. So every once in a while we have something positive to talk about. But the natural gas piece should be particularly disturbing because the majority of Connecticut's electricity is generated by natural gas. So
That's right.
this tax ends up also pushing up the highest electric rates in the country that Connecticut ratepayers are paying. So natural gas becomes even more complex. If you heat with it, you're running your lights, that means everything's being taxed at the same time.
Chris, have you spoken to Katie Dykes, the commissioner of DEEP? Have you had a one-on-one with her and said, hey, listen, cameras aren't here, the flash bulbs aren't here, there's no reporters here, you and I, let's just talk. Come on. What is this all about? What are you doing here?
Yeah, listen, part of the reason why we don't like the language in the bill that takes away or that provides the power for the commissioner to enter into these agreements is that, number one, we don't think that they should have that power, but the commissioner has a job, and that job is to find a way to lower emissions. And I respect that the work that she has to do to get there. We just don't want to give her this authority. We think that elected officials should be making these decisions because if she has that one job, she will do everything in her power to achieve it. She wants to do the best that she can for Connecticut from her perspective. We have a different perspective on this. We don't believe that Connecticut can afford this solution. This is not the right solution for Connecticut. So that's why it needs to remain in the General Assembly, in their hands firmly. It should not be shopped out to somebody who has no accountability to taxpayers.
Chris, quite frankly, I think if the General Assembly voted on it, there's so many liberals up there, I think it would have the same results. I'm sorry to say that, but that's my belief.
I'm a little more optimistic. So I'm a Red Sox fan. I always believe we can win the World Series. And I'm more optimistic than that. You know, Gary, we did good work with you 2 years ago and on TCI. The legislature made that decision. You know, Martin Looney at the end of that session came out and said, you know, we're not going to implement these regressive taxes on people. And so I'm more optimistic that the people who didn't like it 2 years ago don't like it now. We're working hard with our staff to try to gain more opposition to it. So we have a shot there. We have no shot at deep. You know, when they start going through that regulatory process to implement these programs, we get steamrolled. I've participated in the last 2 decades, so many proceedings where the outcome was already written. You could tell over and over again. We still show up and we still fight them there, but it is clear. At the legislature, there are people who will listen, and we have their ear.
All right. SEMA, by the way, represents 75% of gas stations in Connecticut, which are all, like you said, all locally owned. 75% of gas stations. It's quite an authority. Thank you, Chris, for being with us this morning. We'll get an update from you towards the end of the session.
I appreciate it. We're going to keep fighting, and thanks for helping us get the word out.
Please do. Happy to play a role. Coming right back to open phones. Our lines are open. Call now.
Cole, Becca Ingram manages a pizza place in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and led people.